JT Tsui here. Welcome to Football Ontario's Year in Review. For those that don't know who I am JT Tsui. I am currently serving as the Director of Sport with Football Ontario, and I am so grateful for you being here with me and my special guest today. Whether you are watching as we stream live onto our Facebook page, whether you are watching the replay on Facebook or on YouTube, thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And we just really wanted to come together to really celebrate our past and create our future. My special guest in this year-end review is our Executive Director, Aaron Geisler. How are you today, brother?
Great, JT. I'm excited to wrap up the year and talk about all the great work that our community has put into 2021, and it was a unique and fantastic year overall for football in this province, and I'm super excited to talk about 2022 and what 2022 has in store. And we've had so many people working collaboratively to build kind of a vision of where we want to go with football in this province, and it's really coming together, and I'm excited for us to be able to kind of just talk it over and go through some of those highlights and really lay the foundation for what 2022 can be. Not a big setting. I love goals, and I'm a big goal guy. I'm not a New Year's resolution kind of guy, because I think that doesn't really work. But I think that for us, talking about what we want to get done and really setting some clear and active goals that the community can be actively a part of is something that I hope that we can kind of convey today.
Definitely, brother. And I'm enthused to be able to kind of, go rewind a little bit, replay the game tape and kind of see and celebrate all the wins and, again, create our future. So here is my challenge to each of you here. If you are enjoying what we are growing together, how we are coming together as we are Football Ontario, what I would love for you to do is give it a thumbs up. Right? And just let us know that you love the changes that you're seeing. So Aaron, I guess the first thing that I'm really curious about is, you and I first spoke almost a year ago, and it was just, you had recently come into this role, the executive director role with Football Ontario. I'm curious, what are some of the highlights? What are some of those memories? What are some of the big wins that have really jumped out to you as you think back on this past year?
Yeah, well, it's kind of nice because right now we have kind of rolling on our social media, the top 10 moments of 2021, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting over the year, because it seems like, I've only been in the position for just over 10 months now, but it seems like it's been 3 years. It's been a whirlwind of things happening across the province, and for me, I think the one thing that just sticks out of my mind so strong is the return to tackle football in this province. And, it's hard not to talk about the situation that we've all been in with the pandemic and not reflect on, the challenges and the unique opportunities that we've had because of that. And I think, Ontario had been without tackle football since, basically March of 2020. And for us to be able to get a full fall season in amongst the challenges and the amount of hard work that took from our stakeholders and from our volunteers and from our coaches and from the players and parents, our officials, that was something that was, it's easy, you see the game on the field and you're like, oh, that, it got put together. But the amount of hard work and the amount of just dedication that so many of the individuals across the province had to put in to make that happen, I think for me is, the biggest highlight of 2022 or 2021, because, we got to see our sport back, but more importantly to that, we got to see a lot of new opportunities in the province that popped up, whether it was flag football, growing across the province, new centers that had never participated in flag football, because they just never had dove into it, but because of the pandemic, it kind of forced us to rethink how we delivered the sport. Getting new groups involved and actively engaged, whether it's more female girls and women in the sport, or creating new variations of the game so that we can be flexible, and seeing our partners in the OUA and the OFC be able to go and participate in national championships. Like it's crazy that we were able to get to that. But for me, there's a lot of wins last year and a lot of memorable moments, but to see tackle football and to see our game kind of grow and be able to be delivered was fantastic. And that was solely because of the just insane dedication of our volunteers and our community to be able to get that off the ground.
Well, and it's interesting, like, and what I'm hearing from you is that is the beauty of sport, especially football, right? Because, challenges, setbacks, obstacles, like they're part of the game of life. But it's not that we want to expect them, but we just understand, like, they do pop up from time to time, right? Whether on the field or off the field. And I just love how you shared that our collective persistence and our love of this beautiful game allowed us to grow and find ways to innovate. And I think that that's where the buzz is. And I felt it, right? Especially during our fall cup, like just seeing the smile on all the parents, the athletes, our community partners, right? It was just amazing to see that joy come back.
Well, and I love talking about this, and I know it's a cliche, but football really is about resiliency, right? And that culture that we've built and the teachings that we learn in the sport have permeated into the community, right? Like, we are a resilient community that has had to work to be able to dedicate ourselves to growing and maintaining the sport. And I think you're exactly right. Our community came together to be able to ensure that we could have our participants and our athletes, have the experience that they deserve to have, right? Like we need, I'm a coach just like you, right? And I think the big thing is that you don't realize what these kids are missing out on until we had to miss out on it, right? Like, I think we all took for granted a little bit what this sport offers and what it does for our community, for our players, for our coaches. And it was great to just see, just the excitement of being able to be back on the field. And, that didn't come without challenges. And I'm a big proponent of, we have to be honest about, how tough and how hard and the roadblocks that we had to kind of work through. And, and we'll talk about 2022. And I think there's a lot of excitement about 2022, but it'll come with challenges that we have to face too. And I think you put it perfectly is that we seen that when our community comes together around, a unifying goal of, and we'll talk about this in a second, football for all, right? When we can centralize around that goal, there's not much that can stop us from growing the sport.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm curious, what was the inspiration, right? As you were mentioning, one of our missions, our vision is to provide football for all. Like, I'm curious, enlighten our community on what was the inspiration between football for all.
Yeah, so we went through this pretty awesome process of being able to get out to, our stakeholders, our members, the general football community in Ontario, our partners, and to ask the question, what do you want for this sport? What do you want for us as an organization and us as a community to be able to, actively pursue a strategy to, look 5 years down the road? What do we want our sport to look like 5 years down the road? And the simplest answer is we want more people playing this game. That was the common theme that we had seen, no matter, where or who or what we talked about, is that, going back to what we just talked about a second ago, what this sport offers, we want to have that provided to as many people as we can. So the idea came that, okay, so what should our main goal be? It should be finding ways to introduce our sport to grow our sport, to existing and to be able to find ways to reduce barriers for associations and volunteers to be able to deliver that sport. And I think that common theme really is driving all of the decision making now that we make as an organization. And I think it's going to be, the driving force for us to really push football into the, the top growing sports in this province. And it really is about how can we get more and more people involved, because the more people we can get involved, the faster we'll grow. The faster we'll grow, the more, we'll be able to provide or reduce barriers for people to jump into the sport. So it really did come from just a growing feedback back from the community of what do we want, and we want more people, actually actively engaging with the sport, whatever that looks like, whether it's flag, whether it's touch, whether it's tackle, whether it's officiating, whether it's coaching. We have a ton of opportunities to be active in the sport, and there's even other opportunities. We've seen a lot of people being like, I'm an active fan of football and I love media, so how can I combine those loves to help grow the sport? So there's a variety of ways for us to have football for all.
Well, what's interesting here is, the underlying theme, right? The root is, what can we do to make the game more inclusive? What can we do to bring diversity? What can we do to make it more equitable, so that really at the end of the day, and anyone watching this has seen how beautiful this game, how life transforming this game can be, not only on the field, but off the field. So it sounds like, again, being more inclusive, diverse, and equitable was a big driving force.
Yeah, for sure. And part of that has just been about how can we get more diverse voices around the table. Mm-hmm. And part of the initiative has been, who, what, where are the leaders in the communities that we want to actively engage in, and then provide them with the opportunity to drive those communities into the sport. I look at some of the partnerships or some of the growth areas from this past 2021 with the initiation of the Central Canadian Women's Football League. There was already active groups both in Ottawa and in Montreal of senior women tackle players who have been wanting a league. So it was just about how can we build a platform for them to be able to, grow that initiative. And so I think that is what we're trying to do is not reinvent the wheel, but rather to empower people to be able to be decision makers in the community. Because one of the things that I've talked about a lot is that this province is massive. It's massive. And our ability as an organization to reach across the province, with a staff of, 3 and, with however many volunteers, it's impossible. So what we need to do is ensure that people feel like they have the ability to make decisions around the sport in their communities and their regions that can help grow. I also look at our partnership with OWIFA, so the Ontario Women's Intercollegiate Football Association. That's a group that's been around for a long time, that has over 400 female participants in the sport that now are part of our association and helping us to drive our messaging and our recruitment and inform our decision making, because they're the experts in that area. So I think there's a lot of ways that we're trying to actively engage, whether it's through our diversity and inclusion committee, or whether it's reviewing our policy and our constitution to see, and our hiring practices to ensure that we can be as inclusive as possible. But it really comes down to listening to the individuals who are the experts in those communities, because if we don't do that, we can't go in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and I love that you sort of touched on one of our core pillars, right, with Football Ontario, which is centered around growth. So I'm curious, one of our other core pillars is around this idea of excellence. So what was the inspiration behind excellence, and what have you maybe observed that really highlights this this growing pillar being really embedded within football in the province?
Yeah, well, as football people, we're always striving to win, right? And it's, winning in our sport isn't always just wins and losses, right? And I think for us, the concept of excellence, or doing the best that we can in every aspect of what we do, whether it's organizationally, whether it's in the delivery of our coach and official education, whether it's in the recruitment of new officials, or the alignment of our partners and our stakeholders, whether it's the amplification of our sport. The idea is that we have this huge competitive drive as football people, which is great. So how do we harness that to ensure that that excellency that we're all striving for on the field is across every pillar of what we do as an organization? And can we take that highly competitive nature that we all have and say, you know what, I want to have that same feeling about wins and losses as I do about new participants in the sport? How can we be the best at getting new participants in the sport? How can we be the best at driving new sponsors or partners to our members and our associations to reduce costs? How can we be the most innovative in delivering our sport? And I look back at 2021 and I think about what we were able to do with our provincial championships, right? And it's kind of a combination of the idea of, yes, it's a provincial championship and people are striving for excellence on the field, but also how can we deliver events that people can feel like this is a destination that we want to be involved in the sport. So there's lots of ways that this excellence kind of has creeped into kind of everything that we do, and it really is just about harnessing that competitiveness that we all have and putting it towards all aspects of what we do as an organization.
Yeah, no, and I love that idea, right? You talked about harnessing, right? And that's the beauty of athletes, right? We as high level athletes have the ambition to drive. And what I really heard from you is just focusing that towards achieving the mission, right? Which is football for all, right? So I love that. I love how it's all coming together there. So our other, again, we've talked about growth, right? We've talked about excellence as our pillar, and our third pillar being around this idea of community. What have you seen in terms of the community, right? One of our big hashtags is "We Are Football Ontario." And it always lights me up when I see other organizations, other people, using that, right? It's unifying, right? So I'm curious, what have you seen, over the last 10 months?
I've seen this growing engagement in wanting to have a sense of community at the provincial level. And that, to me, is the most exciting thing, is that, I talked about earlier, Ontario being massive geographically and very diverse in what our communities look like. And, but there's slowly creeping in this central theme of who we are as Football Ontario and who we want to be collectively. I'll say this. I like to kind of relate this to family. I have three kids, two boys and a girl, and they're all under 5. And it's not always roses and sunshine, right? Like sometimes they get in conflict. Sometimes they one will shove the other, and the other next thing they're best friends again, right? But they're family, right? And that's how I see our football community is coming together, and we're gonna have differences, we're gonna have issues, we're gonna have, because I go back to the idea of us being highly competitive people, right? It's hard to be highly competitive on the football field all the time and not have these conflicts or issues. But at the same time, they're slowly starting to feel in this province like we are building a community where, whether I'm in Windsor or Ottawa, there's something that ties us together. And it's the love of this sport, and it's the love of the growth of this sport. And you're exactly right. When I see somebody else use hashtag Football Ontario, and it's one of our members or partners or associations or participants, there's something growing here. And for me, what I think that's going to do for us is put us in the direction where we continue to grow together. Because I do really believe that we need to raise the floor rather than just raising the ceiling for certain groups in our province. So we need to keep allowing more and more people to have the benefits of this sport as we grow. And that's going to take all of us to do that. And I want to ask you though. So I'm going to flip the table a little bit. I know this is the role that you're used to,
Yeah.
asking the questions, but what do you think that you've seen over this past year around the community building and around some sort of centralized theme of this province?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, Aaron. For me, it always comes back to this idea, being, kind of you having the vision and you creating this opportunity for me to move into this, director of sport role. What lights me up, what brings me joy, and what speaks to my heart is just seeing the conversations we're having, right? Like the people that are reaching out, that want to engage, that, hey, I have this idea. Can I share it with you? And it's again, it's not just from people that that have always shared those ideas. These are people that are coming from diverse backgrounds, diverse areas of the province, right? Different economic backgrounds, different genders. Like that to me is what shows that people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel appreciated because they're willing to share something that's inspiring them. So I think for me, that is a great, sometimes it's easy to miss those, but to me, that is a great metric of showing that there's a greater sense of community, there's a greater sense of family, there's a greater sense of belonging happening in this provincial community.
I love the way you put that. And I know I've talked to you about this. Is I'm one of those guys that just loves ideas, right? Like there's no idea that we can't wrap our head around to see if we can make it work. And not every idea is going to work, but we should be able to try, like innovation. So I really do want to talk about innovation as one of our pillars. Yeah. And I think that, for us to really have the most innovative ideas, having a diverse set of ideas come through. And that, like you said, is about just giving people the opportunity to say, hey, I have this thought or this initiative that I think we should try. One of my, I'll say, faults is it's really hard for me to say no, right? Like, especially because, hey, this person is engaged, enthusiastic, wants to try something that can help the sport. Let's try it. And I think it goes back to the idea of, okay, how do we empower that individual now to not only have that idea, but to put that idea into action? And I'm hoping that, we can build more of those opportunities for people to be able to say, maybe I was involved in this other sport at one point and they did this, and this was a really great kind of situation that they were able to put in place that helped to, grow their participation at 6 to 8 year olds, right? Okay, great. Let's try it. Because, for us, I really want our organization and our sport to be on the cutting edge of innovation for sport. And to do that, you got to take chances, right? Like you have to be able to try an idea, test it out, see how it happens. And sometimes they're going to hit, sometimes they're going to miss, but you're always going to be propelling yourself forward when you're being innovative. I'm a big tech guy. Like I love virtual reality. I love, what's innovative and what's new. And, the most successful organizations, they're not just sitting on what they've done over the past 20 years. They're constantly trying to innovate. And I think one of our, I'll say one of our strengths / weaknesses in our sport is that, football has a ton of history, which is fantastic. And we need to hold that history close while understanding what we need to do to change to become, what we strive to be, the most excellent, innovative community in sport delivery. So I'm with you 100%. Like I'm super excited when anybody comes and says, hey, I got this great idea. And we want to, as an organization, try to find ways to cultivate that opportunity for those individuals to see that come into life, because, that's how we're going to grow the sport, I think.
Well, and again, it's interesting you share that, right? And I think back to the first conversation we had in February around this idea. And, it's really easy to talk about change. The one thing I always, I always like to challenge people, like be the change, right? Like embody the change you want to have. And hey, I'll be the first to acknowledge you, right? Like our first conversation was around, hey, what idea do you have? Here, let's go here. And it's kind of grew and evolved into what we're doing now. So I would encourage anyone, if you have an idea, and I think back to just even that, little Google form we've created, right? If you have a great idea, we want to hear about it, right? And we want to learn more about it. So, send me an email. I'm more than happy to listen. And if it helps us bring the game together, great.
Yeah, and in saying that, like, communicate with us on social media, right? Like, use social media to say, hey, this is what I think would help us. This is what we think we need. This is what because we want to be able to listen to the community, to be able to, really drive what the participants at the ground level want. And that's how I think we really kind of to move forward in this.
So, we've gotten to know each other well, right? It's funny. We first met over 8 years ago at a Football Canada, coaching clinic, and here we are there, and it's just amazing how life unfolds. So, one of the things I like to do, I like to push people, I like to stretch people, I like them to, really stretch their minds. What would 10xing your vision look like? Like, we're sitting here a year from now, we're doing the same thing, we're recapping 2022. What would you love to see?
Yeah, I think that's great to talk about. So I'm a big list guy. That's what I am. Like, so if you were to see my office, I'm a yellow pad paper kind of guy. So I have these all over the place, and I just have lists on lists on lists. And I love just being able to list right. Okay, we did this, we did this, we did this. If I can tie this kind of to our strategic plan and what 2022 needs to be in that kickoff. With Football for All being the kind of main driving force of everything that we do, the main goals for 2022 are, ensuring that we can deliver the sport the way that it needs to be delivered, with the challenges that are kind of surrounding the pandemic and navigating those things, really driving our 4 to 8, 9-year-olds, where we can get as many of those young Ontario kids across the province engaged in the Football Canada First Down program, in flag football opportunities, in just get out to play. Like, we ran this awesome kind of camp with the Buffalo Bills in Niagara. So we created this great partnership with the Buffalo Bills, and they were able to, we were able to get 150 kids kind of just out playing the game. And for me, that's one of the biggest goals that we have for 2022. Can we take that group of 4 to 8, 9-year-olds, both boys and girls, and get as many kids out across this province as we can? In 2021, we had 10 new associations start Football Canada First Down programs. In total, that was about 450 kids across this province from that 4 to 8-year-old age group that had never kind of actively participated in football before, and they got a football in their hand. And that's how we grow this sport. So I think that's one of the main kind of goals and driving forces for 2022. I think the other one is, getting as many girls and women engaged in the sport. That revolves around growing the CCWFL, working with our partners at OWIFA to really grow what they do, and to drive that, to be able to, Quebec and the RSEQ did this great initiative where now flag football is a RSEQ sport at the girls and women's level. And I want to see that same thing happen here in Ontario. And I know there's a lot of our partners that want to see that same thing. And then at the younger level, this is the first year that we're going to have our inaugural U18 girls tackle provincial team. And to get to that, we're going to be running a 6-a-side jamboree. So, hoping that we can get as many associations and partners involved in delivering girls tackle football across this province, so that maybe by the end of 2022 or the start of 2023, we can have a true provincial league, or associations across the province running leagues. So I think that's a big thing as well. And I think lastly, what I would say is that with the new structure of our provincial leagues under the Ontario Community Football League, the Ontario Summer League, and the Ontario Fall League, it's really driving that excellency in the delivery of our provincial travel and regional leagues. And that alignment piece, people pulling and working together to really create the best possible scenario for us to thrive in those leagues. I always look at what the OHL has done in this province, and what it's cultivated from a business perspective, and from a that product that they deliver is fantastic. And we shouldn't feel like we can't reach that same level of excellency here in the province for football, whether it's high school football or whether it's community football. We can do so many things to really put football on the podium in this province, so that fans want to go out to our games. They want to go out to the stadiums. They want to have opportunity to see as many live streams as we can. So in saying all of that, 10x, really it's about having more and more people engaged in this process, because it can only get done if we have a collective of people all marching in the direction of growth. And it can only be done if we have 100, 1,000, 10,000 people all really driving the same message and growth and excellence. And I think that is really how we're going to get there in 2022. And for us, it's about how do we create those opportunities and platforms. So there's a lot on the plate. I have a lot of lists for 2022. So I'm excited though.
I love that. And why I love that is that, I definitely felt and heard that overarching message of football for all, finding those new opportunities, whether it's flag, whether it's with the women, whether it's the tech side, whatever, like just introducing it. And I love how everything is embedded in our core pillars, right? Like excellence, like being able to offer, our U18 tackle for females. Like that's great. Being able to see just the growth and finding new ways to engage athletes, whether it's in the football futures, right? Whether it's the first down programs, whether it's the our UA flag partnership. Like it's great there. And I just love the community. Like, and you really, sort of tied it all up by, we are two people, right? Like the more people that we bring into the vision, the more people that are willing to walk with us, the faster things are gonna improve. The better this game is going to get for everyone, and the more people that get blessed with this beautiful game and how it can, as I said earlier, transform lives.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important that we try to bring in not only new individuals but new partners. And I always look to the corporate partner or the nonprofit partnership role, or strengthening our relationships with the CFL teams or the NFL teams, or working with our provincial sport organization partners, whether it's within the province, like Rugby Ontario or Ontario Soccer or Ontario Basketball, trying to find ways to learn from what they do, or work together collaboratively with Football Canada to find ways that we can, it all comes down to resources, right? Like how can we share and reduce the workload or resources that is needed to deliver the sport? And that's about building partnerships, right? And one of the things that I think there's a lot of growth area for is the growth of partners. And we've started to see that growth in 2021, with our partnership with Area 51 and with our partnership with the CFL teams and the MLSE and the Buffalo Bills. But there's a lot more growth area in that realm, and I think there's a lot for us as a sport to offer these partners as well. So when you talk about excellence really, there is a big pillar there in corporate excellence, right? Like, and how can our organization, all the good things of what a corporate organization is, right, without all the bad things, right? Like all the good things that corporations and build, but with sport and with nonprofit, and the fact that we are here for kids. And I want to touch on our last pillar, because I think it is the most important one, and that's wellness. And there over the past, I would say 10 years, I was at Football Canada for 8 years, and one of the biggest portfolios that I worked on was the safety and wellness of our athletes, our coaches, participants, our officials in the sport. And I really do believe our sport has never been safer. Our sport has never been more proficient at ensuring that our athletes are staying in the game. And sometimes I think it gets lost in the conversation of all the changes that have been made to ensure that we are propelling the sport on the tackle, flag, touch side, to not only protect the wellness of the athlete physically, but the wellness of the participant as a whole, both mentally and physically. And I think, safe sport and ensuring that we are creating a safe environment for the athletes, or of the coaches or the officials, the officials being a big piece in all this, creating a safe space or safe sport atmosphere for the officials is really important for this game to grow. And the wellness aspect of us being able to put first the health and safety of this game and of those participants has been a major driving sport in football. Whether it's rule changes, whether it's new education, whether it's, we have this great partnership because of Football Canada, through Players Health, that we can have an injury tracking platform for all of our member associations, so that we can, have a technological solution, an innovative solution to be able to maintain, manage, and return kids to sport. So I think that wellness piece, and we use the word wellness because it is a holistic approach, and I know you love to talk about the holistic approach to this. So I think you can touch on it a little bit better than I can, but it's not just about, the physical safety or the physical, it's about growth. It's about how we can put new programs engaged so that we can grow the individual and create a sense of wellness around them as a human being, basically, right? And to be able to make them feel like they have the tools or skill set to be able to move on in life, to thrive. And I think, I really, really will argue with anyone that our sport has never been safer than it is today, and it will only keep getting safer. But it's not just about the safety of the athlete. We are working on a bigger picture here of what we can deliver to these participants to help them grow. So I got to ask you the question then, on the wellness side, because I know this is kind of your wheelhouse, is where do you see in 2022 us going to be able to really grow this sense of wellness? And I know we kind of started some stuff with the Greatness Academy, and but I want you to talk about it a little bit.
I'm a big believer, right? And of paying homage, right? And I started by talking about, it's important that we celebrate our past and we create our future. I've always loved that old OUA tagline that used to be on TV, like champion for life. I think what I really see as the vision is really being a champion for life. And I think the more athletes, the more coaches, the more parents, the more community partners that buy into that vision of helping youth football so that we can create and being champions for life. That's the vision, right? And I'm just so enthused to, be along for this amazing journey and see where this wild ride takes us.
Yeah, I'm excited. 2022 is gonna, be an interesting year because, we've kind of built a foundation now with the community, and we've set some goals and we've set some markers, and we now have to put everything into play, basically, right? It's the great adage of being a football coach is that, at some point, the players got to play, right? And so that's what 2022 is. It's about playing the game. We started to build a foundation, so now we have to really put into action a lot of the things that we've put into place. And like you said, it's about community. It all comes down to community. And the more that we can create and build that sense of community, the better off that the sport is going to be. So, New Year's always is a weird thing for me. It's like, we have this arbitrary day where it's like, okay, this year ends and we wrap it up and then this year begins. And I always thought that was kind of weird, but at the same time, it is kind of nice to say, let's reflect on what we've done. I know, you're a big believer in, we have to celebrate the wins, and I don't want to be, I'd be remiss if I didn't, kind of wrap this up in a way that, myself, I am very appreciative for everybody in this community, for yourself and our staff, our board of directors, the membership as a whole, our partners who have, worked tirelessly this year to help us put into place this vision. And it hasn't always been easy, and it's not always going to be easy, but I am just incredibly grateful for everybody who has put in the time, energy, and effort. And I think the thing that kind of gets forgotten sometimes is that the vast majority, I would say 95 to 99% of people that are actively engaged in delivering the sport are purely volunteers. And those individuals are giving up their time with their family, with their job, with extracurricular activities that they would normally do to make a difference. And from myself, and maybe as a representative of Football Ontario, I think I want to thank each and every one of you have been a part of that this year. And I'm excited to walk into 2022 with each and every one of you to continue that. And I want to say that, we will make sure that we continue to work as hard as we can to support and engage our community, and to keep providing opportunities for people to be a part of that community. So I think that's, 2021, we're almost wrapped up. I guess we've only got like 9 or 10 hours maybe until this 12 hours until this year is done. But it's been an exciting ride, and I'm super excited for 2022.
Yep. I think that was a perfect way to break the huddle, and pun intended. So everyone, again, thank you so much for everything you do. As Aaron said, have a blessed rest of your day. And we look forward to, creating this great future with you moving forward into 2022.
See everybody in the new year.